What does the phrase New South mean to you?
The New South requires Southerners to drag it into the future.
I think the South is the most beautiful place in America.
My name is Kevin Blackistone, and I'm sitting with my friend Robert Green II.
We co-host the award-winning podcast, Our New South.
In our third season, Robert and I are going to talk to some of the most celebrated voices in the South.
Follow the show, rate and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and watch the show on YouTube.
To learn more, go to museumoftheNewSouth.org.
Support for This News is So Gay comes from the LGBTQ Plus Opportunity Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, leveraging philanthropy to empower LGBTQ plus communities. Welcome to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ plus newsroom. Thanks so much for joining us. Here's what we're covering on this week's episode. Developments with ICE most certainly have an LGBTQ plus angle. What is the latest we need to discuss there? Ballot initiatives for minority rights. Is that a good idea? The 10 Commandments might soon be coming to a classroom near you. What's that all about? We have mostly avoided heated rivalry as a topic on this podcast. That ends this week. Why is this our queer culture obsession, or is it? It's not for me, but we'll find out for others. And of course, queer joy. Where is our roundtable finding queer joy in the news right now? Joining us this week to answer those questions and so many more. It is 2/3 of our dream team. The weather has wreaked havoc to have us all here, but 2/3 is a winning percentage for me. Reporter for the Ohio Capital Journal, Susan Tebben. Susan, welcome back to the show.
Hiya.
Great to have you. And returning to the show, but under a whole different banner, in a whole different state, in a whole different climate, service journalism editor for the Sacramento Bee, and of course, the official sports ball correspondent for This News is So Gay, Lauren Chapman. How the heck is the weather in California?
I think it's 55 right now. We finally got out from our foggy gloom, and to point back to 2 out of 3, according to Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That is what the lyric tells me. But unfortunately, we're going to drop Lauren Chapman after her weather report. Susan, it's just going to be me and you surviving this snowstorm. We'll keep her on. We'll keep her on. Our LGBTQ plus reporters roundtable is now assembled, so let's dive in. So, full transparency, we had an episode ready to go last week on the developments with the fatal shooting of Renee Good in Minnesota and with the Supreme Court case on trans athletes. But then the weather said, nope, we are not letting you into the studio. So I want to start this week with you all in the same place that I was actually set to start with last week's panel. There's so much going on, which I know I've said probably 30 times here in our 31st episode, but this time I really mean it. So can we just do some check-ins before we get into the latest news? Susan, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, I'm a millennial. I'm an overthinker, so I'm naturally Midwesterner too. So I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm good. What's going on? But I mean, it's also the millennial thing of what more could we possibly have to deal with here, especially as journalists. There's just so much, I don't know, one unprecedented event after another. So it's sort of like, you don't want to get desensitized to it. But at the same time, at a certain point, you have to, I don't want to say pick and choose, but like you kind of do have to pick and choose what you can be the most outraged about, because there's so much to be outraged about, especially even in the most recent news over the weekend with the Minnesota shooting. So it's just, you got to pick and choose your battles, and you got to have your queer joy when you're outside of it. That's what I've found the best to do. Is I do my work, and I work to be a person who's helping get the information out. But at the end of the day, I find what makes me happy and gets my brain off of things for a little bit, because I have the privilege to be able to do that. And then we move on to the next day. But thanks for asking, Ken.
Of course. Lauren, you've done this huge move. How are you doing?
Yeah. We are we are finding new and creative ways to live, laugh, love under these conditions. It just echoes something that Susan just said. I mean, you have to, I think as journalists and I think also as just queer people, that we really do feel compelled to witness the things that are going on in the world around us. And the most important thing that you can do in addition to being there to help people, being there to supply information as journalists, is also to fill up your own cup. And so I'm finding some new and creative ways to do that, thousands of miles away from the support system that I had, and doing so somewhat successfully, and also finding ways to make sure that I'm, enmeshing myself in the community that I have just plopped myself into.
I truly believe that we should all be defined by the first piece we write for our new outlet. So for me, it was the introductory message to the Buckeye Flame, introducing the Buckeye Flame back in 2020. Lauren, for you, apparently it is poisoned mushrooms.
Yes. The panic that I felt of, oh God, what was my first story? It was poison mushrooms. Yeah, these death cap mushrooms are cropping up because the conditions are right and they grow predominantly in coniferous forests. And that's a lot of what you see in Northern California. I mean, that's throughout California, really. There have been like several deaths and dozens of people who have been, sickened by these mushrooms. And there's a whole like other component about how, it's predominantly communities of immigrants who are most affected by this because they're moving to a new place and they are used to foraging in their own communities. They're the communities that they came from, and it's a whole thing. But yeah, I love learning new fun facts, and now poison mushrooms. I know too much.
There it is. Susan Tebben, do you know your first piece for the Ohio Capital Journal? Because I just looked it up.
I think it was on paid family leave, ironically.
It was 100% on paid family leave. There you go.
And, I'm still writing about that, so we're still working on it.
I can tell you my first piece for Indiana Public Broadcasting as a reporter. My first piece was a Trump protest in November of 2016.
There it is. There it is. Well, let's talk about protests and let's jump into some of the latest news. This was a really difficult show to put together. I stared at my screen for a while. I've actually struggled a little bit in the past week, even writing some evergreen content like, yes, I know that this brings queer joy, but this doesn't feel the most important, and been just trying to plow through. I even texted Adam Rhodes, who could not make it on this week's episode, to motivate me, but he took way too long to respond. But I do want to talk about ICE and see where we can get with that. Lauren, a great piece in the Sacramento Bee, your new employer, educating folks about their rights if ICE is in their city. What do we need to know?
Yeah, shout out to my reporters, because now I have direct reports, and that's weird. They learn too much about queer culture every time we have a one-on-one. But I put together a recast of a lot of reporting that they had done previously and updated it with some of the new information that we are starting to see. So the banner headline, if you are a bystander and you see ICE activity, important things to know. If you feel so inclined to record that activity or to report it somewhere, first things first, there is no state that outright bans recording officers of any form of government. However, big caveat there, you should check what limitations there are in your state. So, for example, it is illegal in almost all states, I believe, to interfere with an officer attempting to arrest someone. But there are also some states that have further limitations, like verbally announcing that you are recording for two-party consent states, or bubble laws, like the one in Indiana. Indiana passed a 25-foot bubble law that is currently being challenged in the court system. So if you are going to do so and you are looking to do so legally, make sure that you're checking your state's laws. Second, advocates are asking that if you feel so compelled to report ICE activity in your communities, do so to a hotline as opposed to social media. If you're posting on social media, the way that algorithms work is that if a lot of people are responding to a very specific post, then it will deprioritize more official social media channels. So, with all of the positive intents in the world, your posts that may or may not be accurate might actually make it more difficult for confirmed information to get out there. So, advocates are asking folks, if you feel compelled to report ICE activity, make sure you're doing so to one of the hotlines that are near you. And across the board, there are truly hundreds of immigration hotlines across the country. There are more than half a dozen in Northern California. I know of probably half a dozen in Indiana. So make sure you're reporting there. And for folks who are undocumented or underdocumented, the Associated Press released an investigation late last week that is really important for folks to know. Longtime recommendations for undocumented or underdocumented folks is being challenged by ICE guidance. A memo was released, part of that investigation, that basically tells ICE agents that if they have administrative warrants, that they have the ability to enter a premise the same way that they would with a different type of warrant. So those warrants break down into two primary categories. You have administrative warrants and judicial warrants. Judicial warrants are the things that we are most commonly familiar with, the ones that allow an officer to enter a home, to do that full investigation that gives them permission to go in non-public places. Administrative warrants don't have the same level of judicial oversight. And the guidance was previous that if ICE comes to your door, do not open it because they are not legally allowed to enter your home or business unless they have that judicial warrant. ICE guidance revealed by the Associated Press suggests that the agency is now telling newer officers that that administrative warrant is giving them permission to do that. Now, constitutional lawyers and advocates and activists are all saying that is bull honk, but as a measure of safety, be careful about relying on that guidance. That is still that legal guidance, but it is something to be aware of as we continue to see the Trump administration increasing immigration raids, especially in Democratic-led cities and states.
So much important information there from the Sacramento Bee. Adam Rhodes is not with us this week, but his specter hangs above us in some way. So I must shout out a hugely influential piece that he wrote about how ICE is no longer reporting the number of trans people in custody. Susan, here in Ohio, we're seeing walkouts of students to protest ICE. What does that look like?
Right. So we've seen, and my colleague Megan Henry covered this earlier this week, last week. So it was a number of different schools actually in Franklin County, which is the county where Columbus is. Worthington schools, Hilliard schools, Upper Arlington, Westerville, Dublin, all of these different schools had walkouts. They were in response to 280 people in central Ohio who were detained when ICE came in on the so-called Operation Buckeye. That was in the end of December. So there were walkouts to say that they did not agree with this, did not agree with ICE presence in Ohio. And the teachers' unions, like the Columbus Education Association and others, were saying, the immigrant children are afraid to come to school. And, you're talking about keeping kids from getting education that could help them better their lives. And so students were the ones that were standing out and coming out and saying this is not how things should be. So that's what we were seeing here in Ohio. And I believe we're still seeing it. Once the snow clears, I'm sure we'll see more of this, but that's what we've got so far.
We love seeing youth out there using their voices. Let's bounce around a little bit with some LGBTQ plus news from across the country. Lauren, I have to ask, you moved from one governor to another, the governor of Indiana and the governor of California, two very different governors with two very different approaches to LGBTQ plus issues. I have to imagine that is affecting the way that you are moving through the world as a journalist.
It's it's a little bit of culture shock, but I do have to say it's a little bit less the governor and quite a bit more the attorney general. So
Yeah.
Indiana's Attorney General, Todd Rokita, is single-mindedly focused on anti-LGBTQ issues in a way that just hits your inbox every single day. And so it's really interesting to experience the culture shock of going from that to a state where the Attorney General of California, I cannot remember his first name for the life of me. I know his last name is Bonta, um, who literally filed an amicus brief earlier today to protest the Trump administration accessing gender affirming care records, medical records. And so it is a remarkable culture shock to go from one extreme to the other. So yeah, it does a little bit change some of the ways that I interact with the world, certainly.
The Christmas card that Lauren Chapman will not be receiving is from Rob Bonta. That is
Rob
Rob
Bonta.
Bonta.
Beans.
Susan, a couple LGBTQ plus related stories here in Ohio that would love to get your take on. Let's start with the 10 Commandments one. The Ohio Senate passed a bill to display historical documents in the classroom, including possibly the 10 Commandments. Are we getting that right?
Yeah, in the beginning, as it were. Yeah,
Yes.
so this is a bill that has passed the Senate now, but is working to get toward the House. They are currently still haven't come back yet, and the snow is keeping them as well. So we'll see if that gets some more movement as we go along in the new year. But it was a list of documents, including, the Declaration of Independence, all of that, the Magna Carta, if you feel so inclined. And the 10 Commandments was included. And these are documents that are in the bill. It says they are historical documents. They are documents that schools would be able to display, and they don't have to pick all of them. So they can pick from the list. It's just that the 10 Commandments, the craw and stick in some people's craw is that the 10 Commandments is included, which is obviously a religious document, a Christian document. And so when you see the opposition to this, it's coming from, there was a rabbi that spoke on it that said that this is, establishing religious text in schools that doesn't align with everybody, obviously. And so there's actually a little sticking point, I guess. What I've heard is there's an element of the bill where if something is donated, say someone donates a framed picture of the 10 Commandments, that must be included. Local boards are supposed to be able to approve these things and say, this is what we have, this is what we would like to post, and it's going to be posted in every classroom, in every school in the district. So there's some argument as to whether this takes away some of the control from the local school boards. The state legislators are saying, no, the local school boards have every control over what goes and what doesn't. They just have to pick from this list, and that's it. So we'll see how this bill goes. I mean, we have, as I'm sure your listeners are well aware, Ohio has a supermajority Republican legislature, Republican governor, all of that stuff. So good likelihood is high on this that it would pass. It would be supported by them, but we'll see.
Yeah, I didn't know until I watched all of those hearings that there were different, and I'm Jewish, and when the rabbi said, wait, our 10 Commandments is not exactly the same, I had to call my dad. He did indeed confirm, apparently, our 10 Commandments is a little bit different. Let's change. I didn't know. I learn as I do this and get to call my dad. Let's change topics a little bit, though. There's a new ballot initiative here in Ohio, Susan. They just launched the signature collection last week. It's to do two different measures because the Republican-controlled ballot board here in Ohio split up these two. One is to guarantee marriage equality, because currently in the Ohio Constitution, it defines marriage as being between a man and a woman. And then the other one to grant non-discrimination protections across a wide range of categories. So because these two were split up, the organizers need to collect over 825,000 signatures to get both of them on the ballot. Was it just today, or possibly it is this week when folks are listening to it, just published a piece on ballot initiatives. Historically, putting minority rights up for a majority vote isn't the best idea. Talk to us about ballot initiatives here in Ohio.
Yeah, so it's been quite the hot topic because of said Republican supermajority. A lot of people have felt like this is the way to go because there are topics like reproductive health and reproductive rights and marijuana rights and things like that that The Republican supermajority, it does not necessarily think are worth their time in terms of allowing for reproductive rights or anything other than anti-abortion measures, which is a lot of what we see with Republican lawmakers. So that being said, with not a lot of movement, there are people that take years to try to persuade legislators to move on certain issues. I know that happened with marijuana. I know that's happening with property tax right now. A lot of people feel like property tax is a big issue that should be something that is tamped down. Property taxes are too high. So we have actually seen some action from the legislature because there was a threat of a ballot initiative related to property taxes. Some of the lawmakers said, yes, because we saw this coming, we thought maybe we should try to do something about this. Whether it's good enough or not, we'll see. But because 2026 being what 2026 is, we have a gubernatorial race in Ohio. We have all of the lawmakers, the state house races, aplenty. We have the attorney general's race. We have the treasurer's race. We have everybody, Secretary of State, all running for things. What that means is we have radio ads, marketing galore for every race you could ever think of, plus the fundraising that goes in with that. The money can only go certain places. So I was, in my story, I was talking a lot about the redistricting reform that was defeated back last year, 2024 now. It's 2026 now. Yay. So because that was defeated, and then we still saw what people saw as very gerrymandered maps passed in Ohio, people are asking for more reforms and to see them try again. And what people are saying, the advocates are saying, is it's not the right move for this because we won't get as much money as we could because there's so many people vying for money right now. We won't get the visibility that we could see because there's so many people vying for visibility right now. So ballot initiatives, while they are very important to people and they are an aspect of government that really is direct democracy, it may not be the move right now because of what the election looks like this year. So that's a lot of what people were saying here. But that doesn't mean that people aren't still trying to, get the experts together, get the language together, because that's a lot of what was the ballot board as a final say on what the language is. And people are not so happy with some of the ballot language that's come out of the ballot board. So it's looking at how will this election come about in terms of who gets reelected or elected and how the ballot board shakes out in terms of what can we do systemically before we actually get into forming these ballot initiatives for the next time and what the support might be in the public for those. That was a very long-winded answer. I hope that answered your question.
It did. We got 2 on the docket. We will see. Again, 825,000 signatures. That is a lot, and we will keep our eyes on that. Again, you all are listening to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck, from the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ plus newsroom. Joining me this week, Susan Tebben from the Ohio Capital Journal and Lauren Chapman from the Sacramento Bee. By the by, if you are not subscribed to this podcast, what the heck are you waiting for? Subscribe to This News is So Gay right this very second on your favorite podcasting app so that new episodes automatically make their way to you. Well, it is, of course, time, folks, for Glitter Bomb. This is where our roundtable shares stories of queer joy that they are seeing covered right there in the news. So let's set off a Glitter Bomb. Adam Rhodes texted me and said, I have an amazing one. Well, you're not here right now, Adam, so I don't know what it is. So let's go to our actual panelists this week. Susan, give us a Glitter Bomb.
Okay, so we're talking about heated rivalry already, so I'm bringing it in. Amongst all of that, people that watch women's hockey, I'm sure knew this already, but there is a engaged couple that are on the women's hockey team, and they're on the same team anyway, and they have come out and people just are dying over them, including me. So I can't wait for the Olympics to watch women's hockey. I don't care what time it is on, I will be watching it. And so we've got lots of gay hockey going on, men and women.
Love it. Lauren, give us a story of queer joy.
I have to tell you, my queer joy was watching Stranger Things, the series finale, the final season of Stranger Things. I know I know that there are a lot of people out there that have their qualms and problems with the way that things ended. I disagree with them vehemently, but that is a totally different conversation. But as a representative of the Hoosier State in California, there are only two things that people know about Indiana, which is, oh my God, Indiana won the college football championship, and two, so Stranger Things. Is that really what Indiana's like? To which I said, yes, there are demogorgons. Have you seen the Indiana State House? Anyway.
There it is.
But I do have to say that the queer joy, spoiler alerts, I do think that the internet has already talked about this quite a bit. The coming out storyline in Stranger Things very much hit me in the chest because it was very much, it mirrored a lot of the ways that my own coming out went. And it was really beautiful to see in, what is a pantomime of a community that does exist in Indiana. And so it was very nice to have that little moment of queer joy immersed obviously in the most realistic part of Stranger Things, which is, yes, of course, you have at least one token homosexual in every D&D campaign. And of course, he plays a wizard, obviously.
Yeah, one seems low for a campaign, but we'll start with one.
It was the 80s. It was a different time.
It was a different time. And finally, in queer culture, heated rivalry. They were Olympic torchbearers. Can we just do one word on this? I even got a text from a former Ohio State representative. Susan, I'll tell you who it was off the air because you're going to laugh, saying, why haven't you done more to cover heated rivalry? So I don't know. I watched the first 2 episodes. I couldn't really get into it. Give me one sentence on heated rivalry, Lauren.
I haven't watched it either.
That makes me feel better.
I have a beautiful soliloquy prepared for why we care so much about it, but I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list. I have to binge watch Stranger Things first.
I feel like Susan has a different answer. Susan.
But first of all, I have to correct myself because the gays will be after me if I don't. The 2 women hockey players that I mentioned, they do play on separate teams and will be on playing for different nations in the Winter Olympics. I'll be watching it all.
Added drama.
Anyway, you really want one sentence on heated rivalry?
I will take no more than one sentence.
It was the perfect distraction from, what we were going through. It came out right before the holidays, I believe. And it created a world in which, yes, there is angst and the gay unhappiness that we all feel, especially if you live in a country that does not allow for such queer joy, but also allowed for such never-ending joy and the ability for so many different populations to be represented in one storyline, and also the LGBT part of it, that it's just another one of those things that you wish was there when you were a kid. I even know my parents never would have let me watch this, even if they were up on that kind of thing.
By the way, I am calling after we finish recording. I will be calling David DeWitt because if this is the length of your sentences, I worry. I worry for your editor. Lauren, is there a soliloquy?
I have a beautiful soliloquy prepared. So the reason why we care so deeply, especially as sports fans, that we care so deeply about something like heated rivalry is because it is the future that we can see on the horizon, or that we already see in predominantly women's sports, because God bless America. But it is the future that we see on the horizon, that we do see this beautiful marriage, especially as sports fans, right? As somebody who is a gigantic sports fan, who loves watching sports, who loves being able to connect with people through sports, there is something really inherently beautiful about the juxtaposition of the kind of hyper masculinity, especially of, hockey, of football, of basketball to a slightly lesser extent, with that tenderness that comes with queer relationships, that humanity, right? And especially hockey, which my hottest hot take is the gayest sport. And I say that as a baseball fan. After every fist fight on the ice, they should have to kiss. That's my hot take. And so that allows us to live out that very specific experience, that you have all of these these elevated emotions tied up in sports, and sports is a way for us to experience a lot of elevated emotions in a very specific, narrow society that tells us that there are limitations to the emotions that we're allowed to feel. And so, Heated Rivalry is a beautiful example of how that kind of elevated storytelling, the broad emotional range of being a sports fan, can also connect us in really meaningful ways across different types of identities. And it is right on the horizon when one day, I swear to God, I'm gonna see two boys on a baseball field and they're just gonna smooch and it's gonna be everything that I need. That's gonna be it for me. I will die happy after that.
Have you never seen the Broken Hearts Club? I mean, come on, that's what that movie is all about, folks. By the way, one of the biggest demographics apparently for Heated Rivalry would be that group that is 100% not represented on this show, straight women. I don't know what that's about, but all right, we don't know.
It's the idea that men act this way, and it's not men acting a certain hypermasculinity, that they also have feelings that they express regularly. The Blue Jackets ticket sales, I swear to God, will go up for this.
We'll take it. I have not been. I have never been to a Blue Jackets game, but I will tell you, Susan, next Friday night, I will be going to my first Columbus Fury match. I have never been to a professional women's volleyball, so I'm very excited about that.
We're all getting around, see?
Yeah.
The sports is spreading.
It's Pride Night. I gotta go. Anyway, let's find out what you all are working on. Lauren, what's coming up there at the Sacramento Bee for you?
My world is very different than it used to be. So I've got a series that we're cooking up to do matchups of the Sacramento area's best donut shops, which apparently Sacramento is the birthplace of the Bear Claw. Didn't know that. Learning all sorts of fun things.
Wow, okay.
And also have an explainer on the horizon about traffic meters on highway entrances. And most importantly to me, bot dots, the little reflective dots in the middle of roads to separate the center lane. That was invented in Sacramento. So I'm very excited to work on a history piece detailing the history of bot dots.
I didn't even know they had a name.
I didn't either. I just learned that. I've never wanted a bear claw as much as I do right now. Susan, I know that the weather has wreaked havoc on your upcoming stories, but what do we have cooking up there at the State House?
Yeah, lawmakers are not able to get anywhere in the snow, just the same as the rest of us. But yeah, they do have some legislation coming up, namely a bill that would require doctors, physicians, anyone who wants to conduct an abortion to read a statement and provide a statement that says that basically you can sue your doctor, your facility, your the distributor of these things, and if some complications should arise from this. Obviously, we have lots of people that are saying on the abortion rights side, saying that mifepristone is much safer than a lot of other drugs. And it, as we're seeing this national outcry for it and the congressional hearings about it and stuff like that, which our Ohio Senator John Husted was a part of, mifepristone continues to be a big talking topic here and nationwide.
A lot coming up. But for now, it's just my appreciation that's coming up because that's all the time we have for this week. And I want to thank our roundtable, Susan Tebben from the Ohio Capitol Journal. Susan, thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Lauren Chapman, in sunnier weather there in California. I look forward to learning more about bear claws.
Thanks for having me.
The Spectre of Adam Rhodes, thank you for being here. And I am Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame. And if you liked this episode of This News is So Gay, please share it with a friend. Subscribe so that you do not miss out on our next episode. Send an email on over to editor@thebuckeyeflame.com. That's me, to let us know your thoughts, and rate and review us on your favorite podcasting app. This News is So Gay is a product of the Buckeye Flame, a nonprofit newsroom. Become a recurring donor today. We call them Fireflies, for as little as $12.50 a month, which truly enables programming just like this. In the meantime, read LGBTQ+ news. Share the stories of LGBTQ+ reporters and support the work of LGBTQ+ newsrooms. Until next week, friends.